Here is what I remember from the moment itself. Mara is in the bouncer seat on the floor beside my chair. 6 months and 11 days old. She has been fussing for the last few minutes, low-grade fussing, not distress, just the vocal warm-up of a baby who is tired and overstimulated and not yet old enough to do anything about either of those things except announce them. There are 8 adults at the table. Roast chicken. My mother-in-law's green beans with the almonds. The good tablecloth, the one my grandmother left me, the ivory one with the scalloped edge. Mara fusses. I reach down toward her. I am 1 second from picking her up. My sister Lauren is sitting 3 chairs away, across the table and 1 seat down, the way the seating had worked out when everyone found their chairs. She has had 2 glasses of wine, possibly 3. She has been sharp-edged since she arrived, not unusual. Lauren has always carried a kind of static charge that intensifies with alcohol and crowds, and she has made 3 comments since we sat down that I have absorbed and set aside because it is Christmas and I am the host and I am trying. I am 1 second from picking Mara up. Lauren's hand comes across the table, not all the way across, she's not reaching, she's just in range, and she makes contact with Mara's leg. Not a slap in the way you'd picture from that word, not open palm full force. A sharp, flat smack. The kind that's calibrated, that carries intent without maximum force, the way adults sometimes hit children when they want to correct behavior without quite calling it what it is. My daughter is 6 months old. She cannot have behavior. She cannot have behavior that justifies anything. The sound is small. The room processes it before anyone moves. I pick Mara up. I'm not sure I decide to do it, I'm simply holding her, the way your body moves toward fire before your brain has named it as dangerous. She is startled. She is not injured. She makes a sound I have only heard from her once before, a short, high note of pure surprise, and then her face goes through the sequence that precedes crying, the still moment, the tremble in the bottom lip, and then she cries. Actually cries, not fussing, the real kind, and I hold her against my chest and feel her heart rate under my palm and I look at my sister. Lauren is looking at Mara. Not at me. Her expression has the specific quality of someone who has done something and is waiting to see how it lands before deciding what to call it. She needs to learn, Lauren says. Those are the words. She needs to learn. Said to the room, not to me specifically. Said the way a person says something they've been thinking for a while and have finally found the occasion to say out loud. She needs to learn. She is 6 months old. I want to pause the story here, step out of that room, out of that particular Christmas afternoon, and talk to you directly for a moment. What I'm going to tell you happened over the next several months is not a story about a dramatic confrontation. There was a confrontation, and I'll tell you about it, but that's not the center of this. The center is something quieter and, I think, more true to what this kind of thing actually does to a family. It doesn't destroy everything at once. It reveals what was already there. It draws a line in the ground and forces everyone in the room to figure out which side of it they're standing on, and some people move toward you and some people move away from you and the movement tells you something you couldn't have known before the line was drawn. I learned a lot about my family in the months after Christmas. I learned which parts of my marriage were stronger than I'd realized, and which parts were shakier. I learned that the person I least expected to be in my corner was sometimes the only person who fully was. And I learned, finally and without grief, what my sister actually is, not what I'd spent 30 years hoping she might become, but what she is. That clarity was a gift, even if the way it arrived was not. My name is Jess. I'm 36. Lauren is 40. We grew up in the same house, shared a bedroom for 11 years, have 1,000 memories in common, the small, specific ones that only people who grew up together have, the smell of a particular shampoo, the song that was always playing during one specific summer, the exact feeling of our parents' house at Christmas before everything became complicated. I loved her for most of my life the way you love siblings when you haven't yet been forced to see them fully. With the selective vision that comes from shared history, from wanting the version of the person you remember at 12 to be the version that has continued into adulthood. The 12-year-old version of Lauren was difficult and funny and sometimes mean in the specific way that funny people can be mean, but she was also the person who sat next to me at our father's funeral and didn't say a single word, just held my hand the entire service, and that memory had been doing a lot of structural work in our relationship for a long time. It cannot do that work anymore. I understand that now. My husband's name is Tom. He's 37, 3 years married to me, Mara's father, and one of the most fundamentally decent people I know, which I say not to flatter him but because it's relevant to what comes later, because decent people sometimes have trouble with permanent decisions, because wanting to believe the best of people is usually a virtue and sometimes, in specific situations, a liability. Tom was at the other end of the table when it happened. He saw it. I know he saw it because his face did something I had never seen it do before, a kind of freezing, like a frame from a film held too long, his expression caught between disbelief and the motor response that in a different man might have been rage. Tom is not a rage person. He processed it the way he processes most things that are too large for immediate comprehension. He went very still and then he looked at me. I was already holding Mara. Already standing, or partway standing, still settling her against my chest. I looked at him across the table and I communicated something without words, the particular transmission that happens between people who have been paying attention to each other long enough to have developed a language below language. Not here. Not right now. But this is not something we're managing around. He nodded, barely. He understood. What happened in the room in the minutes after was a compressed version of what would happen in every family conversation for the next several months. Some people moved toward me and some moved away and some tried to inhabit the space between, which is not a real space, but which human beings will attempt to occupy because it feels like neutrality and neutrality feels like safety. My mother-in-law, Patricia, not the Patricia from your imagination, not the villain of some other story, but Tom's mother, a woman who had always been quietly warm toward me and specifically gentle with Mara from the moment she was born. Patricia put down her fork. She looked at Lauren for a long moment. She looked at me. Then she said, to no one in particular, in the mildest possible voice, "I think perhaps Lauren should take a moment outside." It was not a question. Lauren looked at her. Something passed across Lauren's face, the recalibration of someone encountering, unexpectedly, a person who wasn't going to manage around what had just happened. Lauren started. "Outside," Patricia said. Same mild voice. "Absolute." Lauren left the table. My brother-in-law followed her, Tom's brother, to his credit, wanting to make sure the moment didn't escalate further. Everyone else was very still. Someone's fork made a small sound against a plate. Mara was quieting against my chest, her hand fisted in the fabric of my sweater, her heartbeat slowing back toward normal under my palm. Christmas dinner continued. In the strange, suspended way that meals continue after something has broken the surface of them. People found things to say. The green beans got passed. Someone complimented the chicken. I sat at my own table and held my daughter and felt, under the shock, under the fury that was still coming and hadn't fully arrived yet, the particular quality of a decision that is not really a decision because it was made the moment it needed to be made. Lauren was not coming back into this house. I hadn't decided it. It was simply already true. Lauren left before dessert. She didn't apologize before leaving, I want to say that clearly, because it matters for everything that follows. There was a moment, in the hallway, when Tom's brother came to get her coat and Lauren stood in the entrance of our home and I was 20 feet away with Mara still against my chest, and we looked at each other across that distance, and Lauren's expression had the quality of a person trying to find an angle rather than a door. She was looking for the version of this that didn't require her to say the word sorry in a way that meant it. She said, she was disrupting everything. Somebody had to. I didn't answer. I turned and walked back into the kitchen. She left. The rest of the guests left over the following hour. Patricia was the last to go. At the door, she held my face in both her hands for a moment. She'd done this once before, when Mara was born, the specific gesture of a woman who expresses things physically that she doesn't easily say, and she said, "You know what you need to do. Don't let anyone talk you out of it." I nodded. "I mean Tom too," she said. "If it comes to that." I looked at her. "He loves his family," she said. "It's one of the things I'm proudest of. But love sometimes makes people want things to be fixable that aren't. You be the one who knows the difference." She left. I stood at the closed front door for a moment. Then I went to find Tom. He was in the kitchen, doing dishes, not because the dishes needed doing at that exact moment, but because Tom does things with his hands when he's thinking, has always done this. It's the physical manifestation of the processing that was clearly underway behind his face. I put Mara in the baby's seat on the floor where I could see her, and I leaned against the counter and I said, "Lauren is not coming back into this house." Tom turned off the water. He turned around. He had the look of a man who had been waiting for exactly this sentence and was still not entirely ready for it. "Jess," he said. "I'm not asking," I said. "I'm telling you what's true. I made a decision the moment it happened and it hasn't changed. I want you to know that before we talk about anything else." "She hit a baby," he said. "I know that. I was there." "Then you know why the decision isn't complicated." "I know why the decision feels obvious right now," he said, carefully. "I also know that tomorrow, and next week, and at the next holiday, it's going to be complicated in ways it doesn't feel complicated right now." "It won't be complicated for me," I said. Tom set down the dish towel. He sat on the edge of the kitchen table, the way he does when a conversation is going to take a while, not aggressive, not defensive, just settling in. "My brother is going to call," he said. "Your mom is going to call. Lauren is going to call, eventually. And everyone is going to want this to be a thing we work through, and I think," he stopped. "Say what you think," I said. "I think if we make this permanent immediately, we close off the possibility of her actually reckoning with what she did," he said. "And if she reckons with it, if she genuinely—" "She told me Mara needed to learn," I said. "She said it to the room. She didn't apologize when she left. She said someone had to do something. That's not a person looking for the chance to reckon, Tom. That's a person waiting for everyone to calm down so she can frame this as an overreaction." Tom was quiet. "I know Lauren," I said. "I've known her for 36 years. I know exactly what she's going to say and exactly how she's going to say it and exactly the angle she's going to use to try to make this about anything other than what it is. And I need you to be ready for that, because she's going to come for you before she comes for me." "What does that mean?" he said. "It means she's going to call you and not me," I said. "Because she knows I've decided. So she's going to try to work through you. And I need to know that when that happens, you're going to tell her that this is our decision, not mine alone, and that it's final." Tom looked at the floor for a long moment. "I need a little time," he said. "How much time?" I said. He didn't answer immediately. I felt the gap in the answer as something physical, a slight shift in the foundation of something, the way you feel a building move in a way it isn't supposed to move and you go still and wait to understand what it means. "Not much," he said finally. "I just need to sit with it. It's my house too." "It's Mara's house too," I said. "I know that. So when you're sitting with it," I said, "sit with that part." Lauren called Tom the next morning. I knew she would, I'd told him she would, and he took the call in our bedroom with the door mostly closed, which I understood and which I also felt as a small, cold thing in my chest. Not because he was hiding from me, but because mostly closed is not the same as together on this, and I knew the difference. The call was 40 minutes. I know because I was in the living room with Mara, doing the morning routine, the feeding, the changing, the small domestic rituals that give shape to days with an infant, and I watched the time on my phone while I listened to the muffled one-sided conversation I couldn't make out, and at the 40-minute mark the bedroom door opened and Tom came out. He looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "What did she say?" I asked. He sat on the couch. "She says she didn't mean it as hard as it seemed. She says she was trying to redirect the behavior," her word, redirect, "and she miscalculated." "Miscalculated," I said. Her word. "She slapped a 6-month-old infant and the word she's using is miscalculated." "She didn't use the word slapped," Tom said. "What word did she use?" He paused. "Tap. She said she gave her a tap." I looked at him for a long moment. He had the expression of a man who knows he is conveying something that reflects badly on the person he is conveying it about and is not sure how to convey it without also seeming to endorse it. "Did you tell her she's not coming back here?" I said. "I said we needed some time," he said. The cold thing in my chest sharpened. "Tom," I said. "I know," he said. "No," I said. "I don't think you do. Because if you knew, you would have said what I asked you to say, which is that this is final. Not that we need time. Time suggests that the outcome is uncertain. The outcome isn't uncertain. I'm telling you that right now, and I need you to believe me." He put his hands over his face. "She's your sister, Jess. She put her hand on our daughter." "I know that." "Then act like it," I said. "I want to be honest about what that week was like, because I think the story becomes less true if I skip it. That week was the hardest week of my marriage. Not because Tom and I stopped loving each other, or because anything fundamental broke, it didn't. But because we were, for the first time, on different timelines of understanding, and that gap produced a friction I hadn't known our marriage contained. Tom is a person who believes in process. In giving people the opportunity to demonstrate change before closing the door. This is one of the things I love most about him, his refusal to write people off quickly, his capacity to hold open the possibility of repair longer than most people do. In almost every circumstance of our life together, this quality of his has been exactly right. This was not almost every circumstance. I do not believe Lauren was going to change. I did not believe it on Christmas, I did not believe it in the week after, and I do not believe it now, many months later, with the benefit of everything that happened between then and this story. My certainty was not stubbornness. It was 36 years of data about exactly who my sister is when she has decided she's right about something. Lauren does not change her mind because she has been asked to. She changes nothing, reframes everything, and waits for the people around her to renegotiate their terms downward. I had done that my entire life. I was not doing it with my daughter. Lauren sent me a text 8 days after Christmas. I want to give you the text precisely, because precision matters and because I have read it enough times that I have it memorized, the way you memorize things you've turned over in your mind until they're smooth. She wrote, "Jess, I know you're upset and I understand that. What I did came out wrong and I regret that it scared Mara. I was trying to help with the noise because it was disrupting the meal for everyone, but I clearly handled it in a way that wasn't okay. I hope you'll let me come over so we can talk about this in person. I miss you and I miss my niece and I don't want Christmas to be the last memory we have together." I read it 3 times. Then I showed it to Tom. He read it. He set my phone on the table. He picked it up again and read it a second time. "She apologizes for scaring Mara," he said. "Not for doing it." "Yes," I said. "She says it came out wrong. Like it was a sentence." "Yes," I said. "And she describes Mara crying as noise disrupting the meal." "Yes." He set the phone down. He looked at me. "Okay," he said. "Okay. I see it." "I know you do," I said. "I've been trying not to see it," he said. "Because if I see it, I have to." He stopped. He put his hands on the table, flat, the way he does when he's working something out. "She's not going to say the real thing. Is she?" "No," I said. "Because she doesn't think she did the real thing. She thinks she made a mistake in execution," I said. "She doesn't think the underlying decision, that our daughter's crying was a problem she had the right to solve, she doesn't think that part is wrong. That's what she's apologizing around. She's apologizing for the method, not the premise." Tom was quiet for a long time. "What do you want to say back?" he said finally. "Nothing," I said. "I don't want to say anything back." He looked at me. "I've had every version of this conversation with Lauren that exists," I said. "I know how each one goes. She escalates, or she cries, or she makes it about something from our childhood, or she finds the specific pressure point that makes me feel guilty enough to back down. I've been in that loop with her since we were teenagers. I'm not going in it again." "You're just going to not respond," he said. I'm going to not respond, I said. And if she shows up here? She won't be let in, I said. Tom was quiet again, a different kind of quiet than the ones before. The quiet of someone who has finished arguing with a position not because they've been defeated but because they've finally arrived at it themselves. Okay, he said. Okay? I said. I'm with you, he said. I should have been with you from the first conversation. I'm sorry it took me longer than it should have. I sat down beside him. We didn't say anything for a while. Outside, Mara was sleeping, her monitor on the table between us, her breathing small and even on the screen. She's going to keep trying, I said. Let her, Tom said. Lauren tried 4 more times. A second text, which I didn't answer. A call to Tom, which he answered and which lasted 6 minutes, at the end of which he said, I've heard you, Lauren, and I disagree, and this conversation is finished. A call to my mother, who then called me, which produced the conversation I had been bracing for and which I will tell you about separately. And finally, at the end of January, she showed up at our house. The doorbell rang on a Sunday afternoon. Tom answered it. I was in the living room with Mara, who was in a phase of discovering her own feet with the intensity of a scientist who has made a significant breakthrough. Tom came back into the living room. It's Lauren, he said. Okay, I said. I told her we weren't going to let her in, he said. What did she say? She said that she's not leaving until we talk. How long have you been in the hallway? I said. About 3 minutes. Go back and tell her that you hope she brought a coat, I said, because we don't have anything else to say. Tom went back. I could hear the conversation in low registers from the hallway, too muffled to make out words. It lasted another 5 minutes. The front door closed. Tom came back and sat on the couch. She cried, he said. I know, I said. You knew she would, he said. Not a question. She always does, eventually, when the other options haven't worked, I said. The crying is real. I want to be clear about that, the tears are genuine, the emotion is genuine. I'm not saying she fakes it. I'm saying that the fact that she's feeling it doesn't change what she did, and doesn't change what's right. Tom reached over and put his hand on top of mine. You're the strongest person I know, he said. I'm just the one who's been practicing, I said. My mother's call came on a Wednesday evening. I had been expecting it, Lauren would have called her, had probably been calling her for weeks, and my mother, who is in many ways a good woman and in some ways a limited one, would have let herself be positioned as the mediator because mediating is the role she has always played between Lauren and me and she is more comfortable in it than she is in having to pick a side. She opened with, I've spoken to Lauren. I know, I said. She's really struggling, Jess. I think she knows she made a mistake and she doesn't know how to. Mom, I said. I'm going to tell you what I told Tom, and then I'd like to talk about something else. Lauren put her hand on Mara. Not hard enough to leave a mark, not hard enough to cause injury, but that's not the relevant measure. She struck a 6-month-old child. She has apologized for the fact that it scared her, not for doing it. She believes Mara's crying was a disruption she had the right to address. She cannot come back into our home. That's not a negotiating position, it's just what's true. Silence on the line. I understand you're in the middle of this, I said. I'm not asking you to choose between us. I'm just asking you not to bring this to me as though there are 2 sides of equal standing, because there aren't. She's your sister, my mother said. The same sentence Tom had used. The sentence that is supposed to carry more weight than it does when the person it's about has put their hand on your child. I know who she is, I said. That's why I know she's not going to change. I love her and I'm not inviting her back into this house. Those 2 things are both true and I've made my peace with both of them. My mother cried. Quietly, the way my mother cries, into the phone. I sat with it. I'm not gone, Mom, I said. You can come here whenever you want. You can see Mara. This didn't change anything between you and me. But I need you to stop bringing this to me as though I'm the one who can resolve it by softening. I can't. I won't. She said she understood. I don't know if she did. But she stopped calling about Lauren after that, which was the thing that actually mattered. Patricia called me in February. Not about Lauren, not directly. She called to ask if she could come for Mara's 7-month milestone. Patricia had appointed herself the family documentarian of Mara's monthly growth in a way I found both touching and, on some days, a little overwhelming, but that I had never once thought about discouraging because it came entirely from love. She called about that, and at the end of the call, after we'd made the plan and talked about what Mara was doing and how she was changing, Patricia said, "How are you really, Jess?" I told her. Not everything, she didn't need everything, but the shape of it. The 4 attempts from Lauren. The doorstep conversation. The call with my mother. The week in January when Tom and I had navigated something I hadn't been sure we'd come out of on the same side. Patricia listened without interrupting, which is not a small thing. She waited until I was done. Tom came around, she said. He did, I said. It took longer than I wanted. He's like his father, she said. His father could never accept a permanent decision quickly, either. He needed to live in the uncertainty for a while before he could accept that some things didn't have an uncertain ending. A pause. It used to drive me absolutely mad. Now I think it's just the way some people love. They keep the door open longer because they can't bear to close it. It's not weakness. It's a different kind of love. I know, I said. I know it's not weakness. It was just hard to stand next to while it was happening. The hardest marriages, Patricia said, are the ones where one person knows immediately and the other person needs time. Not because either of them is wrong, but because the space between them in those moments is very cold. I was quiet for a moment. That's exactly what it was, I said. Cold. You came through it, she said. We did, I said. And Lauren? Lauren is not coming back to the house, I said. Good, Patricia said. Simply. Immediately. I want you to know that I will support whatever you and Tom decide about family gatherings, events, holidays. If Lauren is not welcome in your home, she is not welcome at anything I host where you will be. That is not a difficult choice for me. I was not expecting that. Or I was hoping for it and had not let myself expect it, which is a different thing. Patricia, I said. I was in the room, she said. I watched her do it. And I watched her leave without saying the word sorry. There are things a person does that tell you exactly who they are. I prefer to believe people when they show me. March was quieter than January and February had been. The attempts from Lauren slowed, not because she'd accepted the situation, I don't think, but because she'd run out of available vectors. She tried me directly, tried Tom, tried my mother, tried the doorstep. Tom's brother had stayed carefully out of it, which I respected. Patricia was now visibly on our side of the line. Lauren was running a strategy that had run out of terrain. The quiet of March was different from the quiet I'd expected when I made the decision on Christmas. I had braced myself for a kind of grief, for the loss of a sibling, for the particular mourning that comes with cutting someone off who has been part of your whole life. I'd expected it to feel like an amputation. Instead, it felt more like a wound that had been left untended for a long time, finally being cleaned and bandaged. Not painless, but moving in the right direction. I missed Lauren. I want to say that plainly, because stories like this can flatten the truth of it. I missed her. I missed the 12-year-old at my father's funeral. I missed specific Christmases from when we were young, the ones before everything calcified into the pattern it eventually became. I missed the person I'd spent 30 years hoping she was going to eventually settle into being. She wasn't going to settle into that person. I understood that, by March, with a finality that had stopped hurting because it had finally become simply true. Tom and I had one more conversation about Lauren, in April. Not about whether to let her back in, that question had closed. About what to do with the grief of it. We were in the kitchen after Mara was down. A Tuesday night. Tom poured 2 glasses of wine and we sat at the same table where Christmas dinner had happened, in the chairs where it had happened, which we'd been sitting at several times a week since December with no comment because you can't stop sitting at your own table. "Do you think she knows?" Tom said. "What she actually did?" I thought about it. "I think she knows she did something," I said. "I think she knows it cost her. I don't think she'll ever fully believe she was wrong. That's the part I've made peace with, that her version of this story, the one she tells herself and probably tells other people, is a story where she made a small mistake and I overreacted and ended a relationship over nothing." "Does that bother you?" he said. "It used to," I said. "It used to feel like something I needed to correct. Like her having the wrong version of the story was something I needed to fix by making her have the right one." I looked at my wine glass. "But I can't make her have the right version. I can only know the right version myself. And I do. So." Tom was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I'm sorry I needed that week." "I know," I said. "I'm sorry it was cold," he said. "In the space between us. I know what it felt like." "You came through," I said. "I should have come through faster," he said. "You came through," I said again. "That's what counts." He reached across the table and took my hand. Outside the window, April was doing its tentative, early thing, still cold at night, but the particular quality of the dark that comes just before things start growing again. Something just on the edge of spring. Mara was asleep upstairs. 7 months old now. Growing in the fast, relentless way infants grow, as if being alive is a project they've decided to attack with everything they have. She would not remember Christmas. She would not carry this. That's the thing about protecting your child, the protection works precisely because they never know what was kept from them. Mara is 10 months old as I record this. She has 2 teeth and a deep personal investment in pulling herself upright on any available furniture, and she makes a sound, a particular, satisfied grunt, every time she manages to stand, which is maybe 60 times a day and which I find myself smiling at every single time, even though by the 60th time of the day I am running on approximately no sleep and the smile is more reflex than intention. Some things are automatic. The smile at that grunt is automatic. Lauren has not been in contact with me in 2 months. The last attempt was a card, actually mailed, with a stamp, that arrived in late February and that said, in Lauren's handwriting, a version of the same thing the text had said, that she missed me, that she was sorry for how things went, that she hoped we could talk. I put it in a drawer. I didn't throw it away, which I found interesting about myself. I think I kept it because throwing it away felt like closing a door I'm not sure I have the right to close entirely, even if I've closed the one to my house. The card is in the drawer. Lauren is not in my home. Both of those things can be true, something I didn't tell you yet. In March, Tom's brother and sister-in-law came for dinner. Toward the end of the evening, Tom's brother, who had stayed carefully neutral through all of this, which I respected and which had also cost us a certain amount of warmth in those early months, said something I've been thinking about since. He said, "I want you to know that when it happened, at the table, I didn't do anything. I went after Lauren because I thought that was the right move. But I didn't say anything in the room." I looked at him. "I've thought about that a lot," he said. "What I should have said and didn't. I think I chose managing the immediate situation over naming what was actually wrong. And I want you to know that if I could go back, I'd do it differently." I told him I appreciated that. I meant it. The people who navigate these moments imperfectly and then come back to look at how they navigated them are not the problem. The people who never look back are. Tom put his arm around me and said nothing, which was exactly right. If you've had someone harm your child, or if you're watching this because you're trying to understand someone who has held a line like this and you're on the outside of the door, I hope this story offered something useful. I held the line because I knew my daughter. I knew that what my sister did was not the end of something, it was the accurate expression of a belief she'd held for a while, about whose comfort matters and whose noise is acceptable and who has the right to correct whom. That belief didn't appear on Christmas. It showed itself on Christmas. Those are different things. Doors can close without slamming. That's the thing I didn't know before this. You can close a door quietly, without a speech, without a long accounting of wrongs, without making the closing into a performance. You can just stop opening it. That's what I did. Mara is 10 months old and she pulls herself up on the coffee table and makes that grunt of pure self-satisfaction, and I smile every single time. Tell me in the comments, have you held a line like this? Was there a moment where you simply knew, the way I knew at that table, and the knowing didn't require anything else? I'd love to hear. Thank you for being here. Subscribe if this story found you. There's always another one coming.